I've blessed you with equipment. I've blessed you with trucks, trailers, skid steer, chainsaws. These people need you. Your mission is out there. Where are you taking me, God?
Yeah.
My name's Wes Harden. Live in Stony Creek, outside Elizabeth in Tennessee. Been doing relief work since day one after the hurricane. It's kind of consumed me. We have a small farm. It's pretty much put us off of our farm. We're both retired, so other than the farm, it's really not put us out much anything else, vacation, but we're just trying to do what we can for the people of East Tennessee and Western North Carolina.
So did you know anything about relief work prior to doing this?
I've done relief work since I was about 18 years old. I was 26 years active duty military, and we would do relief work all through the course of the time I was in the military. And then we've continued it ever since I retired.
So this wasn't something that necessarily you didn't know about it. I mean, I don't think you knew about a hurricane in East Tennessee, but...
No, I've worked hurricanes. This one was an anomaly.
Yeah.
It's people think, well, the Gulf Coast gets hit harder than we did up here. The hurricanes hit harder there, but the recovery is much quicker. It comes through and usually passes over quick. That one got hung in here. The devastation here was absolutely worse than anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Do you think that, doing relief work the whole time, but the active duty military and all that, do you think that's kind of lended a hand in the way that you were able to handle these?
Yes, most definitely.
What did you do in the military?
You listen to me, I sound like the village idiot, but believe it or not, I was a satellite network combat communications engineer.
Okay. Now, explain what is that?
The Army Marines would take a piece of battlefield that we decided it was of strategic use, and we were going to maintain it. And as soon as they would get me a piece of ground clear, I would fly in, start building satellite dishes and setting up network.
Okay, so you worked on the communications and
provided communications all over the battlefield.
Well, so you were one of the first ones in, though.
Always.
It's pretty wild. Do you feel like that has allowed you to stay calm? I mean, think situations through, I assume.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Something I noticed throughout all this is that a lot of people have these, through the flood, through the hurricane, through disaster. I mean, myself not knowing disaster relief. I mean, we've done mission work, stuff of that, but never anything of this nature where people lost their entire house down to the foundation. Is that a lot of people have these skills, these skill sets, kind of like these backgrounds that sometimes you think, well, there's no way that plays into normal civilian life, or there's no way I'm going to be able to use that first reaction force type mentality. But then all of a sudden a flood hits East Tennessee, houses are completely gone, there's no communications. I mean, I would assume that puts you kind of a neat spot there at the beginning.
It was interesting in the beginning. However, most of what we did in the beginning, day one when we could get out with our ATVs, we were up around Minneapolis, North Carolina, delivering supplies way up in the mountains. There were no access other than ATVs, and that's kind of where we started.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, I'll give you a little testimony.
Okay.
I come from two of the oldest families in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. My great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was one of the founders of the state of Tennessee, Colonel Joseph Harden, if you'd like to research. Kind of an interesting story. He's one of the leaders at the Battle of Kings Mountain.
Okay. I know about that battle.
So, September 28th, I woke up and I prayed, and God said, Wes, you're from two of the oldest families in this region. These are your people. These are my people. Where are you taking me, God?
Yeah.
Well, where he took me, every day since, it's been somewhere different, something different. But I know when he speaks that I need to jump on it. For 12 years, I've been riddled with arthritis. And from November to March, I'm usually on crutches or stuck in a chair by the fire.
Okay.
So I told God, I said, I'm going to listen. Smart man, smart enough to know that You tell me to do something, I got to get out there and do it. And I'm going to make you this promise. Until I have to get on my crutches this year, until I have to sit in my chair, I will do what you tell me. My wife and I, and I couldn't do this without her. April is absolutely
She's one
my
of a
driving
kind.
force. I said, I'll do this. To this day, my arthritis has not kept me down one single day.
It's wild, ain't it?
Not one day.
Now, have you, to preface your testimony part here, were you praying for the healing of the arthritis,
No.
or just for the guidance? Like, hey,
The
until
guidance.
it keeps me down, I'm
Till
done.
it keeps me down.
Okay.
I had determined that my arthritis was something that was due to injuries in my past, and that was, I had accepted that that's just the way I was going to be. I did not ask for relief.
But it was given.
It was given.
Yeah. You know, sometimes it's one of those don't pay for patience, and sometimes you're given stuff that you don't really think
And
about.
we've had a lot of special moments with the people we've been helping.
Yeah.
Lady we're building a house for that lost everything, and we're building her house right now. A couple of weeks ago, she gave her soul to Christ
That's awesome.
and went to church for the first time in 40 years.
Now, is that a byproduct of some of the work that you're doing?
That's what she says. I can't swear to that.
Yeah.
I won't take the credit for it. That's between her and God.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the spirit. But do you feel like there was anything in like your earlier life that's kind of pushed you towards what you're doing right now?
Two great people in my life. An old farmer named Pappy Hyder over on Powder Branch in Elizabethton. One of the greatest men I ever knew. Small man in stature, but yet one of the greatest men I ever knew. And he put me on a path. He started the Wes Harden that you see today. At 8 years old, I was going to Powder Branch Grocery, pulling the little red wagon, picking up Coke bottles. I would walk the 3 miles to the store and the 3 miles back home. I'd get a moon pie and a RC Cola or something, you know. And one day this white F-150 four-wheel drive pulled up beside me. And Pappy was called Pappy because he called everybody else Pappy. And this old man rolled this window down. He said, "Pappy, what you doing?" And I said, "Well, sir, just collecting Coke bottles. Go up here at the store." He said, "You big enough to be working. Do you work?" And I said, "No, sir. I just pick up Coke bottles and take them to the store." He said, "Well, I've got a farm. Would you be interested in working?" I thought, well, sounds good to me. And he said, "I'll come talk to your parents this evening. If it's okay with them, we'll put you to work." From that morning, the next morning at 04:30 until I was 17 years old and joined the military, I worked Pappy's farm.
Really?
Yep. That man was a great leader. He had a mindset. Nobody on Powder Branch that needed help didn't get help from Pappy. It was shortly after the Vietnam War. We had a lot of war veterans up there, and of course there were a lot of drug issues and alcohol issues amongst the veterans. And Pappy would put me on a tractor on a Saturday morning with a trailer behind it.
How old were you?
8, 9 years
So
old.
you're still that same age.
And he'd say, "Pappy, I need you to go to this house and this house and this house and this house. And you knock on the door and tell them to get their butt on that trailer and get down here. We got work to do." And I said, "Pappy, have you already talked to these people?" "No, sir, but they need work and I got work. And don't take no for an answer." And I would roll up to these. I didn't know half of these people. I'd roll up, I'd knock on the door, and they'd come to the door. Sometimes they'd look hungover, strung out, and they'd say, "Who are you?" And I'd say, "Well, my name's Wes Harden." "Well, who's Wes Harden?" "Well, I'm here because Pappy Hyder told me to get up here and tell you to get on that trailer." "Oh, hang on a minute. Let me go in here and grab a shirt."
So
I'll be right
they had
there.
enough respect for him to.
I never had a man tell me no when Pappy Hyder
Really?
said he needed work. He was a blessing. And the other man that I give credit for the Wes Harden you see today is my grandfather, Elsie Shelp. Another great man. 3rd grade education, smartest mathematician I ever met. You couldn't give him a math problem he couldn't solve.
Really?
He could fix anything. He had sayings that I recant today. Things like can't, never could do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a spirit in him that drove him to accomplish anything. He said anything one man can do, another man can do. He just has to put his mind to it. And that's the belief that was stuck into me at an early age. And those two men, once I joined the military, people learned that you couldn't tell me something couldn't be done.
Yeah.
If one man can do it, another man can do it. And that's where the Wes Harden today came from.
Okay. So I do think that a lot of times too is because we feel like that those guys, that was so long ago, right? Like less than 100 years ago, that those guys were really growing up too. It was a different time, like the Depression and everything that people had to live through, World War II. I mean, all that stuff was right there. I think that a lot of times what people are missing. So this is kind of where I'm at mentally right now, is that a lot of times we're not able to put into words this type of drive, right? Like this. I had a guy the other day ask me, "Hey, how do you do everything that you're doing?" I don't know. Just do it. I don't have an answer for you. I don't have like a planner that I sit down. I just get up, get in the morning, start, and wherever God leads you is where you go.
Well, it ain't going to do itself.
Right. I mean, and you just got to do it. I mean, you just got to go and, there's a lot of stuff that either on my personal properties or my personal life that don't probably get done, accomplished in a timely manner the way it should. But it is that drive. I've kind of got it. I think something else that I've noticed with interviewing a lot of these people that's been doing this flood relief is, and I've said this before, is raging ADHD. Like unstoppable like thoughts, and like you can't just sit down and go to sleep without that continuous like, I can do this, this, and this, and this. That the story of that guy helping people. How do you think at 8 years old? So my oldest is 10. How do you think at 8 that changed maybe your mentality on the helping side? If you didn't have that, do you think that you'd have the same like I can help everybody mentality?
Even if I did, it wouldn't be as strong as it is.
Yeah.
But watching a man go out and force people to help themselves while he provided help for them, people who normally wouldn't ask for help, they wouldn't seek help, yet they needed help.
Yeah.
And they would just as soon live day to day, penny to penny, and yet he would take them, he could show them. And there were a lot of those guys that actually became productive citizens again. After a few years of working with Pappy, you find out he had a network of people, he could get them jobs, but yes, I may have had some of the drive, but I can't promise you I'd have all the drive to help people. To watch somebody be able to steer, guide, direct people out of where they were and build them up, it was pretty amazing at that age.
What was his background?
Farmer.
So
he had
normal person.
He had I think he had an engineering degree, but he was a farmer. I mean, he owned like half of Max Jet area of Powder Branch. And it was old. I mean, it's family land. That's all Hyder territory there.
That's pretty wild. So once you joined the military, once you went in, did you have a plan set, like this is what I'm doing, and how did that change?
My plan from the time I was about 3 or 4 years old was to join the military and stay there until they got rid of me.
Okay. So you did do that.
Oh, yeah. I pretty much did that. It became a young man's game at the point when I exited, but then I turned right back around and hired in as a tactical contractor doing the same thing. But that was my game plan for life from the whole time. I mean, I had opportunities to go to college. My guidance counselor in high school thought I was crazy. Why are you joining the military? You're a straight A student, and we can get you in any college in the country. And my whole goal was the military.
Was it? Do you think that you joined the military out of some? How do I word this? Like an obligation to help people, or was it like a personal?
My Uncle Darryl, 33 years, still alive today. Korean War, Vietnam War, 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars, Silver Star.
Wow.
And to see that man in uniform and know what he was doing when I was a kid, that was the only thing that was where I wanted to be.
So that pinpointed your future.
Yep.
the beginning of the military. So when did you go in?
1980 I joined.
So the 80s. What was that time? Because that was time of peace, right?
It was a time of peace, but we were still close enough after the Vietnam War that the military was not highly respected.
Okay.
It was interesting wearing a uniform.
Really?
I didn't expect that so much. Growing up in East Tennessee, you didn't see a lot of the protests and stuff in the during the Vietnam War. You didn't hear people talking about the hatred for military or anything. So I was not anticipating that when I pulled out of East Tennessee. When I left here, I had rarely been out of Carter County, let alone East Tennessee, and was dropped off in the world. I'm not sure if either one of us were ready for the other.
I say that all the time. I really do. Where were you? Where'd you go first? I mean, after boot camp.
After boot camp, I actually stayed in San Antonio for my first part of my tech school, and then went to Georgia for combat training. And I was destined to be. I was supposed to be on the battlefield, working military intelligence and engineering systems. And yet, my first assignment was right where I did not want to go, to a air-conditioned building wearing nice clothes in the middle in a 3-letter agency in St. Louis. And
So not really what you
no,
intended.
as a matter of fact, it kind of soured my mouth for the military, because that's not what I wanted, yet that's where they put me. But little did I know, and it's divine intervention, that agency that I worked with, I would be working with the entire rest of my career from the field.
Wow.
So it really founded me. I understood the entire operation back there, and few of the people that I worked with on the battlefield understood what was going on behind the scenes.
Do you feel that again, this is one of those divine movements, right, by God, like placing you where you need to be at the right time? So I don't really know that time frame, right? Like, how did that mindset of don't really want to be here, did you fight that for a while? I mean, was that like was there a troubled time there? Did you just kind of push on through it?
I pushed on through it.
Yeah.
I knew that if I stayed the course, I could put myself eventually where I needed to be. And it turned out that, and sometimes you just have to follow where God puts you. And it turned out that where I was really was where I needed to be. It helped me the entire rest of my career.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of that, you mentioned God. Were you a Christian believer? I mean, I guess being in East Tennessee, Bible Belt, we all tend to have some sort. But, I mean, were you a devout believer at that point in your
Devout
life?
believer, yes. My father was a Southern Baptist minister.
Okay.
I grew up as a minister's child. And, of course, I was in church every time the doors were open. And I won't say that I went to church all the time, the whole time I was in the military, but my beliefs never changed.
Really?
Never.
How was that easy in the military?
It was for me. I mean, and as a matter of fact, as I became older and seasoned in the military and some rank and leading soldiers and troops, there were times, I can recall one time in particular, a young man came to me. We were on a mountaintop in Afghanistan. We were taking heavy fire. I'm sitting there calm as a cucumber. Picked up my satellite phone, called my mother. She'd tell you that story. It was a funny one because I had it steered through Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii. When it showed up on her phone, it showed Hawaii call coming in. She thought I was in Hawaii, but we were under fire, and all we can do is stay down. And this kid comes to me and he's like, "Sarge, how is it that you sit here calmly?" I'm like, "Son, we all got to die. You start dying the day you're born. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't need to inflict it on ourselves, but we don't need to worry about it. And if you have faith, you don't have worries." And that young man was saved.
That's pretty wild. I guess we all see these movies. Everybody can kind of imagine that conversation actually happening, kind of paint a picture of, the wiser man feeding wisdom into the younger man. I don't think that is a natural. It's a gift. I mean, we understand our Christian gifts are gifts given to us by God. Each one of us have a different gift. Some people just specifically have the ability to say the right thing at the at the most inopportune time, and it puts people at ease. Being able to say something and get somebody saved in a moment of distress, it is a gift. And the only reason I say that is because I've seen it. There's times where during this flood, during this disaster, where you've been sitting there and somebody is not coming to you for advice, not you necessarily, but just people in general. But God's placed you in a point where you're able to give that advice and it changes their entire life. I've seen, not flood related, something on that example is a house fire. A young man, I say young, but 50s, right? His house burnt down, got his daughter out, but through the ability to be there in the moments where that happened, I saw a person, it was actually a sheriff, we've had him on the show, was speaking to him, and was able to literally change everything about his life, change his job, change the way that he raised his daughter. But it was because of the struggle that he was in, that house fire, that everything from that point on changed. The struggles that we face, and you, I'm sure, know as many struggles as about anybody, just living what you have. How do you handle those deep struggles? It's kind of like me. I don't really know how to explain it to people. I just kind of keep pushing. I don't really stop. How do you mentally handle those struggles? Is it prayer? Is it Bible? Or is it just this mental stamina where you don't really give up?
It's the mental stamina, but I'm given that by God.
Yeah.
Anybody that knows me will tell you I pretty much have the patience of Job.
Okay.
And I can face something that should be unattainable, and rather than run into it, you'll see me back away from it and look at a broader picture.
Okay, explain that.
You mentioned a house fire. Emergency management personnel train firefighters to not rush into a fire. And the reason you don't rush in, you don't know the status of the structure. You may go in to save one person and you may lose 3 firefighters. They back up, they assess the situation, and then they calmly take steps to do what needs to be done. It may take what appears to be a couple of minutes longer, yet if you had played it out the other way, it could have been a terrible situation. And I tend to kind of look at adversarial points in life the same way.
Okay.
I prefer to back up, look at the overall picture, and start taking steps rather than running into the fire.
That kind of goes against most of our human nature.
It does. Firefighters in particular, and it's one of the reasons that they train firefighters not to do that. People with the mentality to be a firefighter typically are the ones that are going to run straight in. And that's one of the hardest things to train them not to do.
This is to stand back and watch.
Stand back and figure out what you've got to do.
Is that part of like the situational awareness that you've gained through life, through all your stuff? Is that to be able to see that this situation is going to end up being somewhat bad? Does that kind of help play?
Well, and I'm going to go back to the 2 people I consider to be my greatest mentors. Okay. It was a quality they both had and shared with me when in my youth, is to assess the situation, determine what needs to be done, determine what steps you need to attain it, begin at step 1 and work your way through it.
So what's pretty wild to me is it's not just you. It's every single person I've interviewed. They've got this pretty wild life, right? Like from the time they graduate high school to the time they're 50s, 60s. They've done pretty incredible things, just like you've served our country, been in pretty tough situations. You still go back to the guy 8 years old. Like that was the part that really melted into your brain.
Well, it was one of the questions you asked me before we started this. Was like, explain where Wes Harden began. And it really did begin at around 8 years old. That's where you started to see the Wes Harden that you know today. And it really was those 2 guys. My father was a great influence too as a minister, but he, quite frankly, didn't know which end of a screwdriver to hold or how to swing a hammer. And yet these 2 guys knew every tool there was and how to repair anything. And I migrated towards them. That was my mindset. Have always been a mechanical thinker.
Yeah.
And when I grew up with them and my natural mindset going that direction, I mean, either one of them spoke, it was gospel.
Yeah. I also being my kids, I've got 3 boys. I can speak, and sometimes it's just like they're not even in the same room, right? But then, like my dad or some of these other men that's in our lives speak. They listen to everything. We could say the exact same thing, and they take it totally different. Our minds as young men, one of the biggest things in my life has always been, I feel like we need to start at the house, like the home level. Like that's how we change the next generation. Is if we can fix the house, fix the men in the house, fix the structure of marriage, fix the way things are supposed to be, raising your kids as a wholesome family. We're able to change stuff, but at 8 years old, I don't think that as men, we realize how much our kids are actually taking in and how much that will change the entire environment of their life.
Well, but prior to 12 years old, you're just a sponge.
Yeah.
And so what goes in, and you're leading into something that I don't think I've ever expressed to you as many times as we've spoken, but a lot of people that know me have heard this, and I'm yet to find anybody that can disprove it.
Okay.
And this is Wes Harden's theory on the problems in America today.
Okay.
4 generations of bad parenting. Prior to World War II, the women were in the homes. Mothers were there all the time.
Right.
People made it through the Depression. People made it through hard times, but the family unit was always intact and always together. We fast forward to World War II. So proud of the Rosie the Riveters, the women that ran America while the men were off to war. The men come back from war. America hits a boom. The women are already working. The men take on new jobs and new production lines. There's money. Families figure out that, with this dual income, we have a lot more money. The first generation of bad parenting came when people said, we grew up in the Depression. Times were hard. We all stuck together and the kids had nothing. I want my children to grow up with more than what I had.
Sure.
That's generation 1. Well, those kids grew up and America's still in a boom. I want our kids to grow up and have more than what we ever had. And it migrated through the 4 generations to today. And they blame the government. They blame the education systems on the woes in America today. But if you look at all the woes in America today, who votes? Who runs the education system? Who owns the children? It's the parents. 4 generations of bad parenting have created the problems that we have in America today.
Now, bad parenting, my parents were the same way. They both worked extremely hard. Now, great parents, great house, but both worked, always trying to push for the next thing. Just the simple fact of now, today, statistically, we're 46% of homes are broken. I mean, in the non-nuclear families. Do you think that is the epitome of what you were just explaining? That's the fallout from that?
It's the parents' responsibility to have the children in church if they're going to go to church. It's the parents' responsibility to teach their children right and wrong. It's the parents' responsibility to be there for the children, not to stick them in front of a computer or a video game or a cell phone and use that electronic babysitter because they don't want to hear them. It's the parents' job to train those children from the time they're young to listen to their elders, to have respect for other human beings. I walk around today, even in East Tennessee, and I think we still have more mannerly people here than most of America does. But I often find people will run over you to get through a door that you opened to walk through. Things like that. We didn't experience that much when I was young. But yet I was into the 2nd generation of bad parenting even then because parents were trying to give too much and not enforce enough.
Is it fixable? I mean, do you think at this point, from your standpoint, or?
We're seeing trends back towards some conservatism in America, and I mean, I can pray that it can be fixed, but Americans just need to, we have less patriotic viewpoints across the board in the nation today than I've ever experienced in my lifetime.
Is that a byproduct, do you think, of the not having the respect taught?
It is, and the education system has changed, and the religious scene in America has changed, right. And it's just
a compounding issue.
It is. But yet the parents are still the ones that ultimately have been in control.
Right. I still always go back, and there's a lot of people that disagree, but I always go back that I say it's got to start at the house.
It does.
I mean, now my kids go to public school. I don't like the public system. My wife stays home, and I push pretty hard to try to homeschool, and there's just some reservations there on her side about teaching 3 boys.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I can. It wouldn't be for the faint of heart, but I do think that's the compounding issue. The lack. Whenever I see, I'm just going to use military for example. I see military personnel. There's a respect that I just naturally have. It's not out of a place. I understand that no matter what happens, military anywhere, there's bad people that are in there, or there's bad people in churches, there's that's anything that you do in your life. But there's a natural respect that I just naturally have somewhere deep in me because of the service that was provided for the country, that person. No matter what they did, they still chose to hang up their everyday life, put on boots, and go work. I also have that for tradesmen. I also have that for pastors, for doctors. Again, everything that you pick, there's bad people. But they are literally the backbone, these type of people. And what I have seen through this, to always bring it back into what we've been living for the past 6-7 months, is the people that I've always had respect for my entire life are the ones out here doing the work. And I don't know if that is something. Now, my dad's tradesman, been a mechanic, and seeing that my granddad built houses for 47 years, 46 years, family all builds houses. I've always just been around. I think it's just a natural thing. The amount of work, hard work that they do is just naturally, I have respect for them. But there's book writers that I've talked to that's been out here working and stuff, but the mass majority are the ones that are home builders, plumbers, electricians, ex-military, retired military, the ones that I've always just grew naturally towards. Those are the ones that I've seen the most. I think it's just something that's bred into that mindset. You give back as much as you get. I don't know. Is it hard? I've talked to 2 contractors that I've used quite a bit throughout this whole thing, and they're one of them's family. And he said last year was the hardest year he's ever had financially.
The people I work with, my wife and I work with several different organizations, and you know that. We try to work closely with you as well. The group of people that I work with that run skid steers, excavators, it's everything that we have is our own personal equipment. And several of these people that I work directly with are in the same boat. One guy, Jake Reuter, that's Helene Rising is his organization, he's got his own landscaping business, and it's not a small business. And for 6 months, he pretty much shut the thing down, and it was running, and everything's been on his own dime. He was not taking contributions. We're all out there running on ourselves.
Yeah.
And but to see the ones, I'm retired, so it's nowhere near the drag on me as it is to somebody that's still young and owns their own business.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. Jake's 44. I couldn't imagine just shutting my business down, and his business is not a small business. Just shut, and he's broken equipment, some expensive. He's broken some expensive stuff, and yet he's still up here right now helping me build a house. We prepped the site yesterday. His excavator's up there. He brought 2 of his employees up.
It's a huge cost.
It is.
And there's some people that's went out like us. We've started an organization as a byproduct of what we were already doing. And you said I guess he started one, right?
Yeah, Helene Rising.
There's a lot of people that's not doing that either. So they're literally on their own dime funding their life, their kids, their normal stuff, their business overhead, and then still trying to push and do recovery. And there's a huge gap in resources, monies that are being given out by the government, by state, by local entities. We, as an organization, have seen nothing federal, nothing state given out to any of these local organizations. We've not captured any of that either. Now, some of the organizations, United Way, East Tennessee Foundation, some of these philanthropic
Samaritan's
organizations,
Purse, God's Warehouse.
These type of organizations that's existed for long times, they're able to capture some of that and hand it down to these organizations. But the mass majority, I don't know if there's a statistic, but I would say it's a 90% of the organizations that are running have captured none of that and are running on their own dime. And running by a church backing them or a small group or a small business, or it's pretty wild.
Well, this whole disaster was an anomaly on our government. I told you I'd done relief work since I was 17, 18 years old. And typically what would happen wherever I was typically stationed somewhere in the deep south, southeastern United States, because of what I did in my AOR. That's where I would be when I was stateside. And so I was accustomed to tornadoes and hurricanes. And normally what would happen, I would get an assignment to go over and work with FEMA or the Red Cross for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, to assist in relief. And I would go out and do assessments, schedule building, schedule destruction, or assist in whatever. But one of the biggest anomalies that occurred when this hit East Tennessee, Western North Carolina, unlike the other disasters I had worked, you would have a hurricane in Biloxi, Mississippi. Picture this, the hurricane is rolling through and the winds are still at 50 knots. Rain's blowing sideways, and you look up I-10 and you see an entire convoy of FEMA campers coming in, followed by an entire convoy of Red Cross semis rolling in.
As the storm
is still, when it broke 50 knots, they start moving stuff in. And I was proud to work with both organizations. And then it hit here, and there were crickets.
Was it just because of the handicap of not having the knowledge of how to play into this? Or I assume government work, right, like FEMA, those type of things, there's already pots set up for those events. Here, I mean, there's probably not a pot for a hurricane.
Well, the money just goes into, see, FEMA the reason for building a thing like FEMA was a good idea. If it were not for a federal organization like FEMA, you and I would be paying into state, county, and local taxes to build these pots for disaster relief, and it's like a gamble that one will ever happen. By paying into FEMA, everybody pays less. Everybody in America pays a couple of pennies instead of dollars into a pot. And then wherever the disaster happens, we've all paid a couple of pennies to fix it. So in theory, it's a good thing. However, they ended up broke this time. How were they broke?
Yeah.
And then we find out that our government had removed some of their funding to do some activities that I don't particularly agree with. But how do you break an organization like FEMA? How do you let them be broke and knowing that they can't handle the next disaster that happens?
I mean, it was a huge issue. It was. We saw it firsthand. The one thing that I did notice was, so I've got some good friends, including myself. FEMA come in, right? FEMA. TEMA was here first. Everybody always assumes they come in prepared, ready to go. They come in and ask local people to take them around on side-by-sides and show them that. It was wild to see that firsthand. And now, in your experience, is that normal? Or do they already kind of have a grasp? I assume because hurricanes hit the same areas.
And usually we would have National Guard support in the Deep South, wherever the local National Guard was, and you'd actually get National Guard influence rolling right in from other neighboring states. So that gave you Humvees, it gave you vehicles, and so when FEMA, Red Cross would come in, it was usually National Guard guys in military vehicles getting them out to wherever they needed to see. But no, once again, you're correct. Here, we had the same experience. These guys show up and we need to see what we're here for. Well, you're supposed to know what you're here for.
Yeah.
This is something you should, meteorologists were telling us that this was going to settle in here. And normally that's when FEMA, the Red Cross, that's when these teams gear up and start prepping. They typically would prep with 200 times what they need prior to the storm so that it was guaranteed. And as a matter of fact, a lot of times they will pre-position stuff. If they can find hurricane-proof warehouses or something, if they can find space, they will pre-position.
Okay.
Not here.
It wasn't.
It was not here.
It was pretty wild. I mean, it was kind of like the Wild West there for a few weeks. It really was. Now, you were going into North Carolina. I didn't do a ton in North Carolina. That's where you started.
We started in many. Well, once we could get off Stony Creek, we were pretty much locked into our property for the first couple of days because there was not really a way out. And then we have friends up in North Carolina, and that's not what drew us into Minneapolis. But we took truck and trailer, and there was a relief organization out of a church in Elizabethton that had gotten a call that they needed mass relief supplies up around Elk Park.
Okay.
So we loaded up. We met down in the
you're talking right there, like Avery County.
Yep.
That area. Okay.
So we met them down at Ingalls parking lot, loaded up trucks and trailers off a semi, and we headed south, and we hit Roan Mountain, hit the fire department where you come into in Roan Mountain. Just so happened that the Avery County fire chief was down there.
Okay.
And he said, yeah, we desperately need you up at the Frank Firehouse, which is right outside Minneapolis. And we rolled in there, had our ATVs, everything ready to go, and we went in, met the guys from the fire department there. They had maps for us, and it's like, these people up here on this mountain, these people up here, these people up here. They knew where the people were that were stuck.
Sure.
And so we just loaded up and started, and that was the beginning of, and it just cascaded after that. Once we got that little relief effort, we were in there for a few days, and then we got a call from a minister friend of ours over in Bakersville, North Carolina, and they'd finally gotten the roadways open that we could get back in there. So we loaded up and headed to Bakersville, and it's just been wherever God leads us from one day to the next.
Paint a picture. What was it? What was the first look into these areas? I mean, was it so here, it was the river, but so Mountain City, places like that I went, they were different. Like the look here was flash flood. Mountain City was water rising, so
it was different. Every place we've been, there were 3 events that occurred that were catastrophic: floodwaters, mudslides, and wind damaged trees.
Yeah.
We worked all the different ones. And it's been hard doing the relief work because I'll outfit my trucks and trailers and my crew for this work. And when we finish this piece here and we've been called over here, we have to take everything back to the farm, offload all the equipment we were using on that site, and upload for a completely different task.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's definitely, the mudslides I think were probably some of the worst. And like relief got it all. Relief North Carolina, they got the flooding, they got the slides, they got the tree damage. That was one of the worst areas that was hit. Thankfully, it was not one of the most populated areas, but it was, the devastation up in there was just, and still is. You drive through there today, it's still devastated.
It's I tell people a lot. I don't know how much I've talked about it on here, but I think what surprised me the most, I've talked about this part, but was like, I could be 15 minutes from the river, a 15-minute drive here in East Tennessee. It was like nothing ever happened. And then you go down the road 15 minutes, and it looked like a bomb was dropped. But there were people 15 minutes away, their first couple of weeks, act like nothing.
Have you made it into the Batcave area?
Yeah.
And when you go in on like 65th or 74, either one going in, you're 5 miles away, and it's like nothing happened.
It's almost like it didn't even exist.
You take those last few curves going up the mountain, and as soon as you come over the other side, boom,
right.
it's gone.
So the Avery County side went through. Irwin was kind of the same way. You go down 26, it's a whole new place. I mean, I was a river guide on the Noachucky there my whole college life, and I've been up and down that river 1,000 times. You learned it. I mean, you knew it. It's a whole new place. It's changed. I mean, the way things flow. You go to Bat Cave, you go to Avery County, or you go anywhere, Rome Mountain, Mountain City. These areas that were affected, they're new. It's pretty wild. But what was getting me a little bit mentally was the fact that I couldn't sleep. Like, I couldn't stop going back. Just 10, 11 o'clock at night, I was sitting there waiting for the morning to come so I could go back and do more. And then you'd get up, get out 5, 6 o'clock, and here went that, nothing against any of them, here went that lawn mowing truck and trailer and all that equipment going to mow yards, and you're going that way. But it's like people were just, not that they intentionally did anything wrong, but
No.
they were just disconnected from the fact that disaster was that bad.
We worked in an area called Deep Gap that's up the other side of Hendersonville.
Yeah.
And we stopped for Subway going in the second morning. And the lady in the Subway said, I don't think I've ever seen y'all in here before. And I said, we're not from here. We're from down in Elizabethton, Tennessee. And she said, well, what brings y'all up here? And I said, we're doing relief work down Deep Gap. The bridge is completely out. All the people that live up in this, it's kind of like a subdivision set in a mountainside.
Okay.
There's people scattered all through there. And they had no way in and out. They had no power. They had a lot of destruction in there. And she said, Deep Gap? Now, we're 5 miles from Deep Gap where the Subway is. And I said, yeah, Deep Gap. She said, I live 2 miles from there. She said, everybody around here listens to the news, and we're of the belief that everything's back to normal in this area. And I'm like, lady, you need to really just take a drive down in Deep Gap, and you'll see what we're working on down there.
You mentioned it, the news. I think that was a huge, huge gap. It was not covered.
I don't know where they were getting their news. They call themselves the news, but we've been out in it every day. And even to this day, we're dealing with utter destruction.
Yeah.
And you watch the local news in the evenings, and it's just like we're back to normal. All you ever hear about is, well, I-26 is about to open back up. They fixed one side of the bridge, and that's like the only woe there is in East Tennessee.
Jackson, the big bridges, I mean, they do hit them. I do think that like where we live, Bumpus Cove, my area, Limestone, I do think that we are leaps and bounds beyond other areas.
Yes.
I mean, compared to
I've worked that area, and I've watched it grow, and it's there's been a lot of work done down in there. It looks completely different than it did even 3 months ago.
It's to the news's benefit here, it is way beyond what we could ever expect. Washington County, I mean, I serve on the Unmet Needs Committee, and we've had like 2 or 3 requests as unmet needs. Mm-hmm. Then you look in other areas, and they're like slammed. I mean, things are just handled. You know, the long-term recovery group here and stuff, they just handle it so well. I mean, I speak highly of them, but you go to Cott County, other areas, and they're like, you know, we don't have the resources, we don't have the manpower, the volunteers. How are you all handling capturing those people that do want to help? And I mean, is it easy? Are people naturally finding you, or is it word of mouth, or are you still seeing a gap?
Well, thankfully, I told you my wife and I work with so many different organizations that we've actually got these organizations assisting each other in finding these gaps, and they're quick to hand off. If they know it's something that we specialize in, or it's in an area that we're in and we're the same way with them, we can have a need come in and it's over here, and I know this organization is taking care of them. We're able to pass that off and or go in and assist them, but give them lead on it. It's in an area they've been working. It's organizational tie-in is
the network.
Primarily the network.
Yeah, it's what I've been telling everybody. The network is key. building this network of these people doing stuff, that is everything.
Oh yeah.
It is wild.
I mean, you make once you make the tie-ins, and especially if you're with some of the either larger or semi-larger organizations. I mean, United Cajun Navy.
Yeah.
My guys from up in North Carolina and myself, we've kind of become one of their A teams whenever there's a critical emergency, and they called us up into Kentucky when they had the flooding up there, and we spent a week up there, and then got back home and it just offloaded, and I get a call from Darian Davis, and he's like, "Man, we need you now in West Virginia, like right now. Can you get a team up here tomorrow?" And so we pack right back up and roll into West Virginia and spend 10 days up there. And it's these networks. And then when you learn who can do what, and then one group gets the need and they start asking around or passing around, these organizations it's not been the government, it's been these organizations that have created the position that we're in today, the positive position that we're in today.
Yeah, and it is growing. I mean, it is, and what we're seeing is it was like that college group, that come down and all this. We're getting larger, kind of well organized groups coming in versus like the ones and twos that can come in on the weekend. We're getting entire groups coming in for weeks at a time. So that's still a huge help. What gap have you seen now? Not necessarily labor-wise or relief-wise, but like in the communities, is there gaps that you've found maybe that were existing pre-disaster that have exposed themselves? I mean, poverty, of course, those type of things. But what are you seeing is one of the largest pre-existing gaps?
Appalachia in general, you deal with the poverty. I mean, we do have a lot of poverty here. I haven't seen a lot of existing gaps other than that. Okay. I mean, it's just Appalachian people are pretty tight together, and always have been. And I will tell you this: one of the beauties of not getting the federal assistance in all this, it has completely restored my belief in humanity.
Yeah,
seeing Americans, I have worked side by side with people from all over this country. We went up to Bakersville. And one of the first missions they put us on was to clear this tree out where they were going to put a relief center in a church. And they told me where the tree was. Well, me and my crew rolled up there, and this was not a tree. This thing was like 78 inches at the base.
Gosh.
Solid oak. And it was all across the parking lot, the road. You couldn't pass. The road needed to be cleared because there were residents that lived on the other side of the road. And we got in there, and one of my friends looked at me, and he's like, "Dude, you realize there's only 4 of us?" And I'm like, "Hey, it ain't going to move itself." And we jumped out and got started on it. I had not equipped myself for a 78-inch tree. I have the stuff at the house, but we got on it, and I said, "Well, we'll cut this back. We can get back to about the 40-inch diameter part today, and tomorrow we'll bring my big saws and stuff up, and we'll knock the rest of it out." And we had log splitter up there. Wherever we went and we cleared, if it could be turned into firewood, we tried to split as we went and left piles for local residents to use as firewood. We take a pause, and there's a hand placed on my shoulder. And I turn around, and I look. There's this guy standing there in a full arborist uniform. He got his hard hat on. He's got his climbing gear. He's got his arm on a big saw. And he said, "Brother," he said, I hate to impinge on another man's business, but could you use a little bit of help here?" I stood back. I shook his hand, and I said, "Brother, I don't know who you are. I don't know who sent you here to me, but impinge, impinge, impinge." It was an arborist group from Maryland that had come down to do relief work. He was a minister, and he owned an arborist company, and he had brought half of his church and all of his arborist company down. And he looked at me and he said, "Brother, take half of my crew, get down there and get started. I see you're splitting wood. We got this." And they took care of the rest of that tree. And it's been that way everywhere we've went.
Yeah.
If we needed help,
it was there.
We would tackle the job like God told us to, and he would make sure it got finished.
Right. Well, I tell this story all the time. It's just one. It's just so easy to tell, and it explains this. We were working on clearing this property. It had 3 houses on it, and that's pretty much where the first week I spent every day was on this same property. And we were sitting there, and one night I get a phone call, random phone call. It was like a New York number. "Hey, I'm here to help." What was wild was I don't know how people even knew that you would do. like I said, we didn't exist prior to this, and it was other than like maybe Facebook posts and stuff because there's no phone service. People didn't know, but get this phone call, and this guy shows up and he's got a semi truck, and he's got a mini excavator, a skid loader. He's got his porta-john, a portable shower, and a Connex with all of his food and everything. He said, "Hey, I'm here for a week. Where you want me to go?" Got the perfect place for you. He went down there and he cleared him a spot and built him a camp. Backed that semi truck up and worked on that same property all week and had that property cleared. It was just like that, like just the placement. It's divine intervention. There's no doubt in my mind. But these placements of these resources and how, there's like that group, that college group that come in. He had 30 kids out of Arkansas, and he said, "Hey, we've worked for about 3 weeks," and this is that networking part. Mm-hmm. What I tell this story for is to try to tell people and prove to people it's super easy. Like this isn't. We don't have degrees in recovery effort. We don't have knowledge. It is really this easy. And he called me and says, "Hey, I've worked for about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks on trying to find places to go and get plugged into. Not really having any luck." And what I did was, while he was on the phone, first time I ever talked to him, 15 minutes, I picked up and I started just conference calling people in. "Hey, you need people. Hey, do you need people?" 20-minute phone call. He had places for all 30 kids that next week, college kids. Like, it really is. It's that easy. But that network and being able to just kind of fly by the seat of your pants, it really elevate. It doesn't make things easier because things are still hard, but it makes your life easier when you kind of have that fluid ability to be moving. It's kind of funny. We talk too is like the personalities, the differences in personalities during this whole thing. The ones that are raging ADHD, like hardcore, can't stop, and then the second is the ability to be fluid. It's wild to me. I never noticed this before. There are people that are so rigid that they're not able to kind of move because this situation still 7 months.
If you're not flexible,
it's wild, ain't it? And I did not know that ability did not exist in a lot of people. And there are literally people that has come to us and said, "Hey, I cannot do this because I'm unprepared." I'm like, guys, we're all unprepared. I don't know what tomorrow. I don't know what phone call I'm going to get. The abilities to do those things, and then having the peace of mind that God's going to place the right resources at the right time, at the right moment, is pretty huge. As you move forward, what do you think? What are you in April? I mean, what's your goals with all this? I mean, just keep doing what you're doing, or is it?
I have kind of backed up. April's still doing a ton of relief work with Heartland Fellowship and a couple of other organizations. And as we get phone calls, other areas that have disasters, I think we will continue to work with probably Heartland and AUI and a couple of other organizations. Myself, I'm kind of backing off on some of that side of the relief work, and I want to get more into the long-term recovery. Like I'm building this house for this lady up here on Spivey Mountain. I've got a bridge that if everything comes through, we're going to do a bridge up in Minneapolis. And I'm trying not to plan too many projects out because I'm planning bigger projects now.
Yeah.
So I see myself slowing down, or it may appear I'm slowing down because I'll take on one project that instead of taking me 5 days, I'm taking on projects that are going to take me 5 months.
Yeah.
So to most of the people around here that know me, it's going to appear that I have slowed way down, but I haven't.
But if they really know you, you don't slow down if you're like anybody else. How do people plug in with you guys? Because to my knowledge, you're not technically you've not formulated an organization or anything of that nature. I mean, you all are just absolutely everywhere.
Well, we still are. I don't know why they felt like they needed to, but the board at AUI voted me in as president.
Okay.
So I am attached to an organization now. A couple of months ago.
Okay.
I still fly under the radar. I've lived my life in the shadows, and I told them when they put me in that position, I said, I'm more like the janitor than the president.
Okay.
I'm the guy out on the ground that's got dirty boots and hands every day. And
that was a good move on their part.
That's where I'm going to be. That's where I'll continue to be. And I continue to work freelance with other organizations. I told them I need the ability to do that.
Yeah.
That's the way I work. Cammie has a particular gift that she likes to use for me as the road warrior.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of fits where I
want to stand. So is going through AUI the best way to kind of plug in with you guys? Because through this stuff, there's been a lot of people that find these videos and stuff want to just plug in. So how would they go get with you?
Yeah. Contacting AUI is probably the best. I'm hard to contact. I mean, the places I'm going into still, there's no cell phone coverage. There wasn't before the hurricane. And I'm working in areas that it's almost impossible to get a hold of me. My wife, where she's not so much on job site. That's not her. She's still doing relief work. They can contact April, but she's part of AUI as well. So, yeah, going through AUI.
So going through Appalachian United Initiative.
Appalachian United Initiative.
Go through them, get in contact with you. So right now you've got a house that you're working on a bridge rebuild, and the bridge is not like a small.
No, this is an 80-foot bridge, and my wife, I'm going to tell you, I keep mentioning her. My life would be a lot harder in this without her.
She is wonderful.
She managed to go through networks and get us hooked up with the largest bridge building organization in America.
Okay.
And I had an engineer from the Bronx call me the other day. I looked at my phone. I was kind of like you with your New York call. I'm like, who's calling me from the Bronx? And I don't know why I took the call. Normally I wouldn't take the call. And I took the call, and it's an engineer from this company. And per North Carolina law, for us to build a bridge, I have to have an engineer that's licensed in North Carolina and a contractor that's licensed in North Carolina. That contractor doesn't have to build the bridge even, but we have to have their drawings and sign off and probably some oversight. But when I explained myself to this young man, he said, yeah, I've got engineers and can probably come up with a contractor down there. So we're waiting to hear back from him with hopefully an engineer licensed in North Carolina. And Samaritan's Purse is probably going to come through pretty big on this for some of the funding. And that's, I'm not a bridge builder. I'm not a house builder. I'm an old retired military farmer and Appalachian hillbilly.
Yeah.
But I find
the ingenuity. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way.
I'm going to make it happen. If it's got to be done, it's not going to do itself. And we're going to make it happen.
And I think it will. I mean, I know it will. I know what you've done so far. It will happen. So what we've always done out of these is towards the end, we always make sure people are able to plug in, right? Understanding that no matter what happens, what objectives or obstacles your life is got in front of you, you can overcome anything. Even if the objective is too big that you don't think you have the skill set, or the obstacle's too big that you don't think that you could ever climb over it, there is a way. I mean, I promise you, myself, I'm right there with you. I'm a electrician, a carpenter, no college degree, just an old hillbilly. I like to farm. I've got cattle, that type of stuff. I partnered up with a guy that I've talked crap about my whole life. Is this Californians that's moving into East Tennessee, and he's my partner in the organization. Wonderful, people. It's really made everything that I've kind of built my life on. It's multiplied. I want that opportunity for everybody. I want everybody to be able to feel what we've felt the last 6-7 months. The disaster is the struggle. I've always said this. I've said this even in messages and stuff, is God does not place easy times in your life. Like, it never says that in the Bible anywhere.
But at the same time, He will never put more on your plate than you can handle.
Exactly right. You will always have the ability to handle what He puts in front of you.
Even if you don't believe it.
Well, Job, right?
Yep.
I mean, like Jonah. Even these large obstacles are completely, you can overcome. What is something, now you could talk to men, you could talk to women, you could talk to boys, you could talk to families right here. Like, what is something that you would want anybody to know? I mean, a saying, one of these old-timey sayings, or is it just, go to church? But what, if you had the ability to say anything to anybody, what would be something that you'd want somebody to know? I always put people on the spot.
Yeah, that's kind of on the spot.
Yeah, always.
Anybody that's around me very much knows I have 1,000 sayings that I want people to know. But I mean, the biggest piece through something like this is just always remember that can't never could do anything. I mean, that is like first and foremost. The moment you take on the can't mindset, you've defeated yourself.
Yeah.
There's a military saying that I like to use, and this is something I train people with, is you can never defeat a man who refuses to be defeated. You can only kill him, yet in death he is not defeated.
Yeah. And that's just a long format saying of can't never could. Really, I mean, there's a guy that we interviewed, Vanis Tipton. He was Korean War. He was he was so humble. 90-some-year-old, 94, I think is how old he was. But anyways, he worked in the science planes, but when they were testing nuclear bombs, he would fly the airplanes through the dust cloud and collect the samples of what, But the whole interview, I could talk to him, he would never talk about his past, never talk about anything he did. He always talked about what other people were doing for him, and he was a flood victim. And then at the end, we were sitting here just conversating, and he started telling this crazy story. Justice was standing right there. He took off back in there and started recording again. But it was like this wild story. Like, this dude had lived on a farm, lost all of his tractors, lost his house, lived on a hill way upstream. The floodwaters come back in and flooded his house out upstream, backwards. And he was sitting on his front porch watching this and never moved. His son come down and got him. Like, he wasn't worried about it. It was just his water coming in. But he started telling this wild story about like the stuff that he had lived through and the stuff that he had seen, and and nothing stopped him. I mean, but the only thing that bothered him was there were a few little items that had memories attached to them. The house didn't bother him. The tractors didn't bother him. The farm didn't bother him. It was these little things that he was holding on to. And by the end of it, you figured out that he wasn't working for the farm. He wasn't working for the house. He was working for those memories. And, those were the things that kept pushing him forward. So I like that. Can't never could. Won't never do anything. I mean, it means something. So now with that, the other thing that I always ask people to do, and this is the second one, I always ask them to close us out in prayer. Would you be able to do that?
I can.
So, yeah, on you.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for the ability to do what you've given us to do. Lord, I pray that you would continue to be with the victims that we continue to help, be with the people who are providing the help. Lord, pray that you would be with the lost, touch their souls to come to you. And Lord, please use us as vessels to try to lead them to you. And Lord, pray that you would be with America, make us strong. Pray that you would be with all the mothers and fathers in the country. Touch them to bring our children up in a correct way. And Lord, we just pray and thank you so much for everything you've given us. And we thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, and the sacrifice that he made and the promise that we'll have another day. Thank you again. And Lord, just be with us. Amen.
Amen. I'm proud to have you on here. I really am. I'm proud to know you.
Well, you kind of got me in a strange place. This is not something I'm the guy in the shadows.
Yeah. Well, and I've never really been one to do this type of stuff, but there was one day where we were trying to figure out how to. Network is my strength. I like building the network. I like building the people, connecting people. I've told Justice from the very beginning, my background's house building. I'm not going to build houses. We're not an organization that's equipped to build houses. So let's make sure the people that are building houses have the people that can help them build houses. And then I said, well, why don't we just do a podcast and get these people and see if we can't connect people and do it for them. And then like Sherry, go out, like if she wants a video of the people helping her, let's go do the video. But Justice, his whole background's TV and data analyst. He's a data analyst for Mass Mutual, worked for Apple. You're the perfect dude for this. you know, I'll sit in front of the camera or do whatever. I don't have much shame.